Hello everyone and welcome to the Win-Win Plastic Bag Reduction Strategies for Business and Communities webinar presented in partnership with greenbusinessowner.com, ecopreneurist.com, Bulletin Bag, and the Sustainable Living Institute of Maui. My name is Scott Cooney from greenbusinessowner.com and I welcome you to today's webinar. Co-presenting with me today are going to be Suzette Bergeron from Bulletin Bag and Priti Ambani from ecopreneurist.com and Green Den Consultancy. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Thanks, Scott. My name's Suzette Bergeron. I'm the owner of bulletinbag.com. We're an online company that provides custom-printed reusable bags to businesses, schools, and nonprofit who use reusable grocery bags for events, promotions, and fundraisers.
Thank you, Scott. So my name is Priti Ambani. I am the managing editor of ecopreneurist.com and I'm also a sustainability consultant at Green Den Consultancy.
We do have a newsletter, and you can find that on our website at greenbusinessowner.com, right in the sidebar. So to get started today, let's talk about the problem of single-use plastics. So single-use plastics include plastic bags, but are not limited to plastic bags. It includes forks, plates, cups, bowls, etc. A lot of different things are made from plastic and made for one single use. The problem, of course, is that plastic is derived from petroleum, so we have to drill for oil. And in fact, in Australia, they found that they used 784,000 barrels of oil last year to create plastic bags for the country of Australia. This petroleum is then shipped thousands of miles. It's processed into non-biodegradable materials, plastics, and then shipped again. And then when the end user has it, they use it for maybe 1 to 5 minutes, and it takes about 1,000 years to degrade. While plastic is technically recyclable, it's not realistically done very often. Plastic ends up becoming litter and, of course, pollution. And in some parts of our ocean, there's 46 times more plastic bits than there are plankton. It also starts to leach chemicals. So as it is made from petrochemicals, chemicals from the single-use plastics end up leaching out into the ecosystem and, of course, work their way into our food, especially our seafood. And then they self-accumulate into quote-unquote icebergs that can actually sink ships. Well, actually, that's not proven yet, but we have a theory that potentially that will happen at some point. So we ran a quick little online survey on greenbusinessowner.com just asking people their opinions on various things around single-use plastics. So let me go through a few of those right now. We also asked, what do you think is the most effective strategy for plastic bag reduction? And overwhelmingly, community-wide bans was the winner with 42% of the votes. In-store credits, where a store will actually give 5 or 10 cents to a person for bringing their own bags, also garnered about 23% of the votes, showing that that is also very effective. Another question we had on our survey was how much does each plastic bag cost taxpayers in disposal and cleanup costs on average? About half the people said basically nothing or less than 3 cents, and about half the people said more than 5 cents. What it really comes down to is that if you're looking at just cleanup of the pollution and litter, it can range anywhere from about 1/3 of a cent up to several cents per bag. But if you're talking about recycling, collection, and disposal, including all the pollution cleanup, in some places it's up to 17 cents per bag. In Australia, they did a survey and they found that 50 to 80 million bags end up on Australia's beaches, in the ocean, on the streets, and in the parks annually. So in other words, for Australia to clean up the 3.76 billion plastic bags that they use per year, they're subsidizing the pollution of these plastic bags into their environment to the tune of about $1.2 billion. And that's at the low end of this estimate scale. But at the same time, that cost of these free plastic bags in stores is also passed on to consumers. So you can see down here, the bottom bullet, the cost passed on to the consumer for these free plastic bags at stores amounts to about $10 to $15 per household annually. So that is just basically hidden fees put into the grocery tab. We also asked the question during our survey, do you believe that plastic bag recycling is effective? 34% said not at all, 57% said somewhat, and 9% said very. The reality of the situation is that in Australia, less than 3% of plastic bags are recycled annually, and in the US, 5.2% of plastic bags were actually recycled. This is not just a result of us not trying hard enough to recycle our plastic bags. This is basic economics. There's not much of a market for recycled plastic bag material. The idea is with plastic, when you recycle it, the fibers break down, the material breaks down, and it doesn't become as useful the second time around. So you cannot necessarily turn a plastic bag just into more plastic bags. It's a lot more complex than that. What happens to all those plastics that don't get recycled and don't get disposed of properly? Well, as we said, they don't biodegrade, so what happens is they end up accumulating in places like our oceans. So the picture on the right here is just plastic debris from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Now, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, also known as the Pacific Gyre, is basically a giant patch of plastic trash, twice the size of the state of Texas, and has been measured with floating plastic debris anywhere from the surface level all the way down to 200 feet. And that's about as deep as we've gone taking information. So you can see on the right what's left of all this plastic, little bits as it breaks down smaller and smaller, but is not biodegrading. And obviously this is an incredibly difficult thing to clean up. The other real challenge is that phthalates and other compounds from these chemicals are leaching into our food. So here's what I was talking about with the iceberg. So when you get a couple of buckets and a ball and a net and some other stuff, it sort of starts to self-accumulate into these plastic icebergs. In addition, you can see some of the other pictures where plastic is just floating freely, flotsam and jetsam, that is just sort of hanging out in the ocean and very, very difficult to clean up. So we've had a number of very successful plastic bag bans, and we'll get into a couple of those here in a little bit. But we've also had extreme resistance put on by the American Chemistry Council, the lobbying front group for the chemistry industry. Here's a quote from Brian Ferguson, who's the former chairman of the board for the ACC, where he says that they try to work with their peers on issues of common concern, such as manufacturing guidelines, to protect public safety and health. The problem, of course, is that that's about the opposite of what they're actually doing. The ACC most recently funded a study finding bacteria in reusable bags. This study, which was shown to be flawed on many levels, was timed to coincide with a vote California statewide on plastic bag bans. Health officials concluded the bacteria was not abnormal or that type or levels would not really be a threat. But regardless, the fact that bacteria was in fact found in reusable bags that were not being washed, they used that to produce a PR campaign to educate consumers on the dangers of reusable bags. And it actually worked. So this is one article that was taken from this study where the Washington Post ran an article that says, reusable grocery bags found to be full of bacteria. Oh my God, run for the hills. Don't ever use reusable bags ever again. Use plastic. The American Chemistry Council also just directly pays legislators. Hawaii State Representative Joe Suki paid $24,000 annually in quote-unquote consulting fees by the American Chemistry Council, and he, go figure, helped defeat a styrofoam ban in Maui and a plastic bag fee here on Oahu. The good news is this kind of lobbying only partially works. Hawaii couldn't pass a statewide plastic bag ban, but it ended up doing it anyway, just going county by county. On May 10, 2012, Honolulu County became the last of the 4 main counties in Hawaii to pass a plastic bag ban, making Hawaii statewide the first plastic bag-free state. Alright, now I'd like to turn it over to Suzette from Bulletin Bag, and she's going to go through a couple of case studies and things she's learned along the way. Suzette?
Alright, thanks Scott. One of the things I've learned is that engaging children can be a really effective way to promote awareness in adults, and by bringing together children and the community, it's a great way to promote change and show people that their individual choices, when banded together, can really make a difference when they're part of a bigger movement. So I'm just going to quickly talk about some case studies. First is the LA Climate Action Club, which was in Damascotta, Maine. It's a high school environmental club. The students organized a town hall meeting to discuss the problems of single-use paper and plastic, and they proposed a project to area merchants. They got 13 sponsors for their bags. Sponsor logos printed on both sides, and the bags were sold in participating stores. The students eventually sold over 1,700 bags, which is actually a really big accomplishment considering the population of Damascotta is just over 2,000. So they did a great job of raising awareness in their community. The next slide is the Nurture Nature Design Contest, which was a statewide reusable design contest that we held back in 2008. It coincided with the Maine resolution to promote reusable bags, which was spearheaded by State Representative Ted Kaufman. We had entry forms available at supermarkets, and we also reached out directly to middle school teachers who use them in their classrooms. We had 7 corporate sponsors who funded the program. We selected a winning design, and 1,000 bags were printed with the winning design on one side and sponsor logos on the other side. And they were also distributed by students outside of the supermarkets who helped to promote reusable bags in the community while giving out free bags. The Colorado Town Reusable Bag Challenge, and that involved 32 mountain towns in Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and Idaho. In the town with the highest per capita reusable bag rate was awarded $10,000 for a solar power system, which was funded by a local bank. The stores tallied the results over a 6-month period between March and September of 2009. In the town of Basalt won by eliminating 48 bags per person during the contest. So the town of Basalt ended up raising an additional $40,000 in grant money that they added to the $10,000 that they got for the contest, and they were able to purchase a solar power system for this area school. And the students were able to monitor how much power was generated in real time, and they incorporated this into the math and science curriculums. So these are just a couple of examples of ways that communities can come together and reduce plastic and raise awareness about reusable bags.
So great, thank you, Suzette. Really appreciate your information and the case studies here. I'm particularly interested about the small town of Dharmascotta in Maine. Very interested in how you were able to bring the Lincoln Academy in and the community businesses. How did you see the connection there, and were the kids going around and talking to the businesses?
Yeah, well, it's actually spearheaded by a student. There was one student who kind of drove the whole campaign. She was a high school student at the time. Now she's a student at Harvard University. And she was highly motivated, and she organized the town hall meeting. She invited me to come and speak with people about the different options for the bags and how the logos would work. But she really kind of drove it, and then there were kind of a key group of maybe about half a dozen students who worked with her. So it started at that town hall meeting where they brought in some state legislators to talk about the resolution that was happening in Maine at the time, and discussed it with the merchants, and were able to show them the benefits of getting involved in the project. And really, they worked with the school and with the teacher who, sponsored the club and managed all of the logistics.
There are links on the bottom of each one of those slides, so if people want more information, they can go there. Is there anywhere else you'd like to drive them to? Do you have a website for your company?
Yeah, sure. It's www.bulletinbag.com.
Awesome. Hey, thanks very much for being with us today. Okay, great. And so now I'd like to turn over to Priti Ambani to talk about some tips for discontinuing plastic bags for businesses.
Great, thanks, Scott. I would like to highlight some of the ways businesses can actually gain from going no plastic. Your business can actually shift away from plastic bags and make it a promotional event, a marketing event, a fun day of freedom from the bag. You can post reminders about this event outside your business. You can even have a bulletin board of sorts that counts the number of plastic bags you and your community has saved. Another way to actually use this as a revenue source is to sell cloth bags. Also remember, your business logo on a cloth bag will definitely outlast a disposable plastic bag. Some business owners actually ask the question, will this negatively affect my business and revenues? What if I go no plastic and suddenly I don't have customers? The best way to tackle the situation is to gather support from the community. Coalitions with other businesses to do the same, encourage your government to ban single-use plastic or paper bags. Now I'm going to talk about a case study in DC where the DC government actually banned plastic bags. So, starting 2010, Washington, D.C. implemented a 5-cent tax for each disposable carry-out bag, whether it's plastic or paper. And the revenues that were collected from this tax were used to clean up the Anacostia River. So this was a wonderful win-win situation where pollution source ended up cleaning the river, which was polluted by single-use plastic bags. The government collected about $2 million in revenue. About 78% of the businesses actually reported that they experienced zero or actually positive impacts of the ban. Now, the government reports that the revenues are going down, but at the same time, the pollution in the Anacostia River is actually going down as well. So this is a great example of how a community-wide ban has helped businesses, has helped the environment and the community.
So just to wrap up, here's how to do local plastic bag reduction strategies. So the idea is starting local. Start on the community level, county level, city level, work your way up towards the state. Build coalitions, get businesses, citizen groups, governments, schools, and a lot of other folks involved, and publicize the business connection quite strongly. Getting this into schools is a very powerful strategy that helps inform teachers and parents and get the kids involved. It really is their world after all, because they're the ones who are going to have to deal with all of our plastic junk. If you can create profit motives for partners, that's also a great way. Reusable bags, generating more money for companies that are on the leading edge of this sort of thing. You can expect powerful resistance from lobbyists, and there will be setbacks, so don't get discouraged, but just keep at it. Slow and steady wins the race. Creating contests is great, and be ridiculous and have fun. This guy dressed up as a plastic bag monster, and look at that, he got Elaine from Seinfeld to come in and give the double thumbs down to plastic bags. So that's it for today. Thanks very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.